I stood in the hospital morgue, my hands trembling as the attendant pulled back the white sheet. The fluorescent lights hummed above us, casting a harsh glow on the metal table. My son Marcus stood beside me, his face buried in his hands, shoulders shaking. The attendant looked at me expectantly, waiting for confirmation. I looked down at the body. The woman's face was swollen, discolored from what they said was exposure to the elements after falling from Eagle's Peak Trail in Colorado. She'd been missing for 3 days before hikers found her body at the bottom of the ravine. The birthmark on her left shoulder matched. The small scar above her right eyebrow matched. This was supposed to be Amanda, my daughter-in-law, Marcus's wife of 4 years. But something felt wrong. I couldn't explain it. Maybe it was my 30 years in investment banking, learning to spot when numbers didn't add up. Maybe it was the way Marcus had gripped my arm a little too tightly when we walked in, or how his crying seemed performative, like he was hitting his marks in a play. Or maybe it was something deeper, some instinct that refused to believe the vibrant, intelligent woman who'd married my son was lying dead on this table. "Dad," Marcus's voice cracked. "Is it her?" I opened my mouth to say yes, to confirm what everyone already believed. When my phone buzzed in my pocket, I almost ignored it. Who would text me at a moment like this? But the buzz came again. And again, insistent. "Give me a moment," I told the attendant, stepping back from the table. Marcus shot me a look, something flickering across his face too quickly for me to read. Annoyance? Fear? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. 3 messages from an unknown number with a Colorado area code. The first message was just 2 words. "It's not me." The second was a photo. My heart stopped. It was Amanda, very much alive, holding today's newspaper. The headline about a wildfire in Southern California was clearly visible. Today's date was printed in the corner. The third message. "Marcus tried to kill me. Don't confirm the body, please. The Mountain View Inn, room 247. Come alone." I stared at my phone, my mind reeling. The attendant coughed politely. Marcus was watching me now, his eyes red-rimmed but sharp. Calculating. "Dad? What is it?" I made a split-second decision. 30 years of high-stakes negotiations had taught me one thing. When someone's lying, don't let them know you've figured it out. Not until you have all the cards. Nothing. Just the office. I lied, sliding my phone away. I looked back at the body on the table, at this woman who looked like Amanda but couldn't be Amanda, and forced the words out. "I can't. I'm sorry. I can't do this. Marcus, you'll have to identify her. I can't." It wasn't uncommon for family members to be unable to complete an identification. The attendant nodded sympathetically. Marcus hesitated for just a fraction of a second before stepping forward. "It's her," he said firmly, his voice steady now. "It's my wife. It's Amanda." The attendant made notes on his clipboard. "I'm very sorry for your loss, Mr. Hartwell. We'll need you to sign some paperwork, and then we can discuss the arrangements." I backed toward the door, mumbling something about needing air. Marcus barely glanced at me, already focused on the attendant, asking questions about cremation timelines and death certificates. His eagerness to move things along made my stomach turn. Outside in the hallway, I leaned against the cool wall, my heart hammering. If Amanda was alive, who was that woman in there? And more importantly, what had happened on that trail? I had to get to the Mountain View Inn. The drive from Denver General Hospital to the Mountain View Inn took 20 minutes through afternoon traffic. My mind raced the entire way. Amanda and Marcus had been married for 4 years. They'd met at a charity gala where Marcus worked as an event coordinator. Amanda was a civil engineer, smart and driven, with a quick laugh and a tendency to see the best in people. Maybe that last quality had been her downfall. I'd liked Amanda immediately. After my wife Caroline died 3 years ago, I'd worried that Marcus would never find someone who could handle his intensity, his mood swings, his need for constant validation. But Amanda had seemed to balance him perfectly. Or so I'd thought. Now, as I pulled into the inn's parking lot, I wondered what I'd missed. What signs had I ignored? The Mountain View Inn was a modest, 2-story building on the outskirts of Denver. The kind of place that catered to budget travelers and people who didn't want to be found. I climbed the exterior stairs to the second floor, my legs feeling heavier with each step. Room 247 was at the end of the walkway. I knocked softly. Amanda? The door opened immediately, and there she was, alive. Her blonde hair was darker, dyed brown, and she wore glasses I'd never seen before, but it was unmistakably her. She pulled me inside quickly, glancing down the walkway before closing and locking the door. Richard, thank God. Her voice broke, and suddenly she was crying, really crying, the kind of raw emotion I'd seen Marcus fake just an hour ago. I awkwardly patted her back, still trying to process that she was real, that she was here. What happened? I finally asked. Who is that woman in the morgue? Amanda pulled away, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, a healing bruise on her left cheek partially covered with makeup. The room was small and sparse. A bed, a table with a laptop, and Amanda's hiking backpack in the corner. Her name was Jennifer Kozlov, Amanda said quietly. She was a sex trafficking victim from Eastern Europe. Marcus bought her identification documents 6 months ago from someone he met through his other business ventures. Other business ventures? Amanda laughed bitterly. You don't know, do you? You really don't know what your son has been doing. I sank onto the edge of the bed. Tell me everything. She took a deep breath and sat in the single chair by the table. It started about a year ago. I noticed Marcus was getting money from somewhere. A lot of money. He bought a new car, started talking about investing in real estate, taking expensive trips. When I asked, he said he'd gotten a big promotion at work. But I checked. He hadn't. He was still making the same salary. So you investigated? I'm an engineer, Richard. I solve problems. So yes, I started looking into it. She opened the laptop and turned it to face me. The screen showed a complex spreadsheet. Marcus has been running an identity theft ring. He uses his position at the event company to get access to attendee information from high-end galas and corporate events. Social security numbers, addresses, credit information, then he sells it on the dark web. I felt sick. For how long? At least 2 years, based on what I could track. He's made close to $400,000. But recently, he got greedy. 3 months ago, he started talking about your money. My money. I'd built a successful career, made smart investments, and yes, I had accumulated significant wealth. Around $8 million, split between investments, real estate, and liquid assets. Marcus was my only child. He'd inherit everything. He wanted access to your accounts, Amanda continued. He asked me to help him convince you to add his name to your financial holdings. He said it was for estate planning purposes, to make things easier when the time came. I refused. We fought about it constantly. He became different, angry, controlling. She stood and walked to the window, pulling the curtain aside slightly to look out at the parking lot. 2 weeks ago, he suggested we go hiking, just the two of us, to Connect. I should have known something was wrong. Marcus hates hiking, but I was stupid. I thought maybe he was trying to fix things between us. Eagles Peak Trail, I said. Yes, it's a difficult trail, but I've done harder. We got to a section with a steep drop-off. The path narrows to about 3 feet wide, with a sheer cliff on one side. Marcus was walking behind me, and then she stopped, her hand going unconsciously to her bruised cheek. He pushed me. Jesus Christ. I fell, but there was a ledge about 15 feet down. I caught myself, managed to grab onto some roots. I was terrified he'd look over the edge and see me. But he didn't. He just stood there for a moment. And then I heard him on the phone, calling 911, reporting that his wife had fallen, and he couldn't see her. That she'd gone over the edge, and he thought she was dead. How did you survive? I waited until he left. Took me 2 hours to climb back up. I was in shock, I think. But I knew if I went back, if anyone knew I was alive, he'd try again. So I went to the bank, withdrew as much cash as I could from our joint account before he froze it, and I went into hiding. And the woman in the morgue? Jennifer? Amanda's face darkened. I don't know exactly what happened to her, But 3 days after the accident, they found a body at the bottom of Eagles Peak. Jennifer had been missing from a women's shelter in Denver for 2 weeks. She matched my general description: height, weight, age, hair color. The body was too damaged from the fall and exposure for immediate identification, but she had a birthmark and scar that matched mine. Because Marcus gave her those. He tattooed a birthmark and used a knife to create the scar. I found evidence on his laptop. He'd been planning this for at least a month. He searched for lookalikes, contacted people involved in illegal immigration and trafficking. He paid $15,000 for Jennifer. She probably thought she was being given a job, a new life. Instead, he murdered her and staged it to look like me. I felt rage building in my chest, hot and sharp. We're going to the police, right now. With what evidence? I have screenshots from his laptop, but I got them illegally by hacking his computer. He'll say they're fabricated. And Richard, he's your son. Everyone knows you'd do anything to protect him. They'll think I'm lying, that I'm trying to frame him. She was right. I wanted to argue, but she was right. Marcus would play the grieving husband perfectly. He'd have people vouching for his character. And I was the wealthy father who would be suspected of trying to protect his only child. There has to be something, I said. Some way to prove what he did. Amanda sat back down, leaning forward with her elbows on her knees. There is, but it requires you to do something you're not going to like. What? You have to make him think he won. Sign over access to your accounts. Make him the primary beneficiary. Get him close to the money. He'll get comfortable. And when he does, he'll make mistakes. You want me to use myself as bait. Not just you. Me too. Because, Richard, I'm going to come back from the dead. Over the next 3 days, I played the role of grieving father-in-law, while Amanda and I plotted. I went through the motions of funeral planning with Marcus, who suggested cremation. It's what Amanda would have wanted, he said solemnly. She always talked about having her ashes scattered in the mountains. Of course, he wanted cremation. No body meant no further questions. I agreed to everything, acting distracted and exhausted. It wasn't hard to fake. I really was exhausted, running on adrenaline and rage. At the funeral, I gave a eulogy that made people cry. Marcus stood beside me in his expensive black suit, holding my arm supportively, while I spoke about Amanda's kindness, her intelligence, her love for life. All I could think about was how he'd pushed her off a cliff. After the service, as people gathered at my house for the reception, Marcus pulled me aside into my study. He closed the door and turned to me with red-rimmed eyes. Dad, I know this isn't the time, but I need to talk to you about something important. Here it comes, I thought. Amanda and I were planning for the future, he continued. We'd talked about having kids soon, about building a real life together. She made me promise that if anything ever happened to her, I'd take care of things. Take care of you, too. Marcus, I know you're in good health, Dad, but you're 68. We need to think about estate planning, about making sure everything is in order. For both our sakes, Amanda would want me to help you with this. The gall of it, using his supposedly dead wife to manipulate me. I forced myself to nod slowly, reluctantly, like the idea was painful but practical. You're probably right, I said. I've been putting it off. Caroline always handled those details. Let me help, Marcus said, and his eyes gleamed. I can set up meetings with your financial advisor. We'll make sure everything is properly organized. Maybe you should be added to the accounts, joint ownership, just in case something happens to me. It physically hurt to say it, but I watched Marcus's face light up with barely concealed triumph. Are you sure, Dad? That's a big step. You're my only son. Who else would I trust? He hugged me, and I had to stop myself from shoving him away. Over his shoulder, I caught sight of his phone on my desk. The screen was lit up with a text message from someone named V. Is it done yet? I asked. Who was V? That evening, after everyone had left and Marcus had gone home to his empty apartment, I called Amanda on the burner phone she'd given me. He took the bait, I told her. We're meeting with my financial advisor next week. But there's something else. He's been texting someone called V. There was a long pause. Vanessa, Amanda finally said. His assistant at work. I should have mentioned her. What about her? She's more than his assistant. They've been having an affair for at least 6 months. I have photos of them together. She knows everything, Richard, about the identity theft, about his plans for your money. She's been helping him. Another layer. Another betrayal. Does she know about what he did to you? I don't know, but we're about to find out. The plan Amanda laid out was risky. It required perfect timing, concrete evidence, and a lot of luck. But it was the only way to prove Marcus's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. First, I had to go through with adding Marcus to my accounts. It took a week to arrange the meeting with my financial advisor, Greg Thornton. Greg had managed my investments for 15 years. He knew me well enough to sense something was off when I brought Marcus in and announced I wanted to restructure everything. Richard, this is a significant change, Greg said carefully, looking between us. Are you certain about this? Absolutely, I said, channeling every poker face I'd ever used in business negotiations. Marcus is my son. He should have access to these accounts. Joint ownership on everything except the trust Caroline set up. That trust was untouchable, thank God. Caroline had insisted on it before she died, setting aside $2 million that could only be distributed according to specific terms. Marcus couldn't touch that money, even if he wanted to. But the other $6 million? I was handing him the keys. Greg processed the paperwork, though I could see the concern in his eyes. Marcus signed everything with a flourish, barely able to contain his excitement. As we left Greg's office, Marcus actually hummed under his breath. "This is the right thing, Dad," he said. "Amanda would be so relieved to know you're taken care of." I wanted to vomit. That night, Amanda called. "Phase 1 complete?" "Yes. He has access to everything." "Good. Now we wait for him to move money. The moment he makes a large transfer, we'll have evidence of his intent. But Richard, there's something else we need. We need him to confess." "He'll never confess." "He will to Vanessa. Men always brag to their lovers. We just need to record it." Amanda had been busy during her time in hiding. She'd not only hacked Marcus's laptop, but also cloned his phone. She could see every text, every call, every email. What she'd discovered was damning. Months of messages between Marcus and Vanessa, planning how to access my money, discussing the Amanda problem, debating the best way to stage an accident. "They talk about it openly?" I asked, shocked. "They think they're safe. Marcus uses encrypted apps, but he's sloppy. He reuses passwords. It only took me 2 days to break in." "Can we give this to the police?" "Illegally obtained evidence. A lawyer would get it thrown out. But if you're wearing a wire, and Marcus says the right things to you, that's admissible, especially if he's confessing to crimes." The problem was getting Marcus to confess to me. He was too careful around me, always playing the grieving widower, the devoted son. We needed him relaxed, confident, bragging. That's when I had an idea. "What if I have a health scare?" I suggested. "Something serious. Something that would make him think he's about to inherit everything naturally, without having to do anything more." Amanda was quiet for a moment. "That could work, but it has to be believable." 3 days later, I collapsed at home. Marcus found me on the floor of my study, gasping for air. He called 911, and I was rushed to Denver General with what appeared to be a major cardiac event. The doctors I'd brought into confidence played along perfectly, talking about blocked arteries and the need for emergency surgery. Marcus sat beside my hospital bed, holding my hand, his face a mask of concern. But I'd asked Amanda to monitor his phone, and she texted me with updates. He was messaging Vanessa constantly, excited that it's finally happening, that we won't have to do anything. Nature is taking care of it. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. That evening, I told Marcus I needed to update my will, just in case something went wrong. He tried to protest, but not very hard. "You're going to be fine, Dad," he said, but his eyes were already calculating. "Just in case," I insisted. "I want to make sure you know where everything is. All the accounts, all the investments, the properties. Can you get my laptop from home? The information is all there." He left immediately. While he was gone, Amanda snuck into the hospital through a back entrance, wearing scrubs and a surgical mask. She set up recording equipment in my room, tiny cameras and microphones that would capture everything. When Marcus returned with my laptop, I made a show of being weak and tired. "Pull up a chair," I said. "Let me walk you through everything." For the next hour, I went through my finances with him, showing him account numbers, passwords, investment portfolios. He absorbed every detail like a sponge. Then, when I seemed to be drifting off to sleep, he stayed in the room, opening his phone. He called Vanessa, on speaker, like I wasn't even there, like I was already gone. "Babe, it's happening," he said, his voice giddy. "The old man is giving me everything. After the surgery tomorrow, I'll have complete control." Vanessa's voice came through tinny but clear. "What if he survives?" Then we moved to plan B. But honestly, I don't think we'll need to. The doctor said it's a major surgery. At his age, the risks are significant. Did you talk to the surgeon? Didn't need to. But I did make a donation to the hospital earlier today. Very generous. I'm sure they'll be thinking about that when they're operating. They both laughed. I lay there with my eyes closed, listening to my son discuss my potential death like it was a stock investment. "When do I get to see you?" Vanessa asked. "I'm tired of being your secret." "Soon. Once this is over, once I have the money, we can go public. We'll say we fell in love after the tragedy, that you helped me through my grief. People eat that shit up. And if anyone asks questions about Amanda..." There was a pause. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was colder. "No one's going to ask questions. She's cremated. Her ashes are scattered. Jennifer Kozlov doesn't exist anymore, not officially. The shelter thinks she ran away. There's no trail leading back to us." "You're sure you disabled her phone's GPS before I threw her off the cliff?" "Yes, babe. I'm not an idiot. I disabled it 2 days before the hike, told her it was broken and I'd get it fixed. She never knew I'd tracked her every movement for the previous month to make sure she didn't have anything on me." My heart hammered. This was it. This was the confession. "What about the real Amanda?" Vanessa asked. "What if she survived somehow?" Marcus laughed. "I watched her go over that edge. No one survives a fall like that. And even if by some miracle she did, she's got nothing. No ID, no money, no proof. I've already been to the bank and frozen all our accounts. She's a ghost." "You're brilliant," Vanessa purred. "This time next month, we'll be in Cabo with your dad's money." "Our money," Marcus corrected. "We're partners now. 50-50 split." They talked for a few more minutes about their plans, about how they'd launder the money through Marcus's identity theft network, about properties they'd buy in places with lax extradition laws. Every word was recorded. Every admission was captured. When Marcus finally hung up and turned back to check on me, I kept my eyes closed and my breathing even. He stayed for a few more minutes, then left for the night, probably to celebrate with Vanessa. The moment he was gone, Amanda emerged from the bathroom where she'd been hiding. She pulled off the surgical mask, tears streaming down her face. "We got it," she whispered. "We got everything." I sat up in bed, pulling off the monitoring equipment that wasn't actually monitoring anything. "Call Detective Morrison. Tell him to come to the hospital right now. And bring backup." Detective Sarah Morrison had been a friend of Caroline's, one of the few people I knew I could trust completely. When she arrived an hour later, Amanda and I played the recordings for her. Her face went from skeptical to horrified to grimly satisfied. "This is enough," she said. "Combined with the evidence of the identity theft and the financial records, we can arrest him tonight." "There's one more thing," Amanda said. "Jennifer Kozlov, the woman he murdered, she deserves justice too." "We'll need to exhume the body," Morrison said. "Compare DNA, prove it's not you. That's going to take time." "We have time," I said. "Marcus thinks he's won. Let him think that for one more night." But Morrison shook her head. "Every minute he has access to your accounts is a minute he could drain them and disappear. We move now." The arrest happened at 3 in the morning. Marcus was at Vanessa's apartment, probably celebrating, when Morrison and 6 other officers knocked on the door. I wasn't there, but Morrison told me later that Marcus had tried to run, actually tried to jump out a second-story window before they tackled him. Vanessa broke immediately, confessing everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. She confirmed that Marcus had purchased Jennifer Kozlov's identification documents, that he'd tattooed the birthmark and created the scar to match Amanda's. She admitted to helping him plan the murder, to researching hiking trails and false survival statistics. She provided emails, text messages, financial records. It was an airtight case. The next morning, Amanda and I held a press conference. The local news had been covering Amanda Hartwell's tragic death for 2 weeks. Now they got to cover her resurrection. Amanda stood beside me, very much alive, and told her story. The video went viral within hours. By evening, it was national news. Marcus was charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder, identity theft, fraud, and a dozen other crimes. Vanessa faced similar charges. The trial took 4 months. I had to testify against my own son. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Marcus stared at me from the defendant's table, his eyes cold and hate-filled. All pretense of being the loving son finally dropped. When it was my turn to speak, I told the jury everything. About the fake grief, the manipulation, the phone call where he discussed my potential death like a business transaction. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Marcus was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole for Jennifer Kozlov's murder, plus an additional 30 years for the attempted murder of Amanda and the fraud charges. Vanessa got 25 years in a plea deal. The whole thing took 6 months from start to finish. 6 months where I learned that the son I'd raised, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike and helped with homework and walked down the aisle when he married Amanda, was a stranger, a monster. People ask me now how I'm doing, how I cope with what happened. The truth is, I don't know. Some days are better than others. I see a therapist twice a week. I've sold the house where it all happened and moved to a smaller place in Boulder. I'm trying to rebuild. Amanda is doing better. She's back to work, though she's transferred to a different office in Seattle. We talk once a week, usually on Sunday evenings. She started dating someone, a kind man who works in her building. I'm happy for her. She deserves happiness after everything. As for me, I've restructured my estate. The majority of my wealth now goes to organizations that help victims of domestic violence and human trafficking, in memory of Jennifer Kozlov, the woman whose name most people never learned. She was 23 years old. She'd come to America looking for a better life. Instead, she found Marcus. I visit her grave sometimes. I'm the only one who does. Her family is still in Moldova, and they can't afford to travel. I've set up a fund for them, too. It doesn't bring her back, but it's something. Last month, I received a letter from Marcus. The prison chaplain had helped him write it, apparently. In it, he apologized, said he'd been influenced by Vanessa, that he'd lost his way. He asked for my forgiveness, for a chance to rebuild our relationship. I burned the letter. Some things can't be forgiven. Some relationships can't be rebuilt. Instead, I'm focusing on what I can control. I volunteer at a nonprofit that provides legal aid to refugees. I've started teaching financial literacy classes at the community center. Small things, but they matter. They help me remember that not everyone is like Marcus, that there's still good in the world. Amanda sent me a photo last week. She's standing on a hiking trail, arms spread wide, sunlight on her face. She looks free, happy, alive. Thank you, the text with the photo said, for believing me, for saving me. I have the photo framed on my desk now. On the bad days, when I think about the son I lost, about the grandson I'll never have, about the future I'd imagined that will never exist, I look at that photo. I think about Amanda, alive and thriving. I think about Jennifer's family, no longer wondering what happened to their daughter. I think about Vanessa, who will spend decades in prison regretting her choices. And I think about the moment in that morgue when I chose to trust a text message from an unknown number instead of believing what everyone told me was true. I think about how close Marcus came to getting away with it. How if Amanda had been less resourceful, less brave, less determined to survive, he would have won. But she did survive. And so did I. That's the thing about betrayal, about having your world turned upside down by the people you trusted most. You have two choices. Let it destroy you, or let it transform you. I chose transformation. I chose to keep going, to find purpose in the wreckage. Some mornings, I still wake up and forget for a moment what happened. I'll think about calling Marcus, about meeting him for lunch, like we used to. Then reality crashes back, and I remember. My son is in prison. My son is a murderer. My son tried to kill his wife and was plotting to kill me. Those mornings are the hardest. But then the sun comes up, and I make my coffee, and I think about Amanda on that trail, arms spread wide. I think about Jennifer's family, finally having answers. I think about all the people who've reached out to me since the story went public, sharing their own tales of family betrayal, of survival, of finding light in dark places. And I keep going. Because that's what we do. We survive. We testify. We rebuild. We choose, every single day, to be better than the people who hurt us. Marcus is 45 years old. If he lives to be 90, he'll spend 45 years in prison, half his life. Sometimes I feel guilty about that, about the role I played in putting him there. Then I remember Jennifer Kozlov, who never got to reach 45, who never got to live half her life. I remember Amanda's bruised face, the tremor in her voice when she told me about falling from that cliff. And the guilt fades. This isn't the ending I wanted for my family. It's not the legacy I hope to leave. But it's the truth. And there's power in truth. There's power in speaking up, in refusing to protect people, just because they share your blood. Marcus made his choices. He lived with greed and violence, and a complete lack of empathy for human life. He chose money over morality, wealth over worth. I chose differently. When faced with the choice between protecting my son and protecting the truth, I chose truth. It cost me my only child, my dreams of grandchildren, my vision of growing old, surrounded by family. But I can still look at myself in the mirror. I can still sleep at night. And when Amanda calls on Sunday evenings to tell me about her week, about her new life in Seattle, about the man she's falling in love with, I can honestly say I'm proud of the role I played in her survival. That's worth more than any amount of money. That's worth more than a relationship built on lies and manipulation. That's worth everything.